Yeah, man, like we were talking about, it's there's this toxicity in the Iranian culture. It's this thick air, this feeling of, as soon as you walk into some sort of function where there's a lot of Iranians, or some sort of event with a lot of Iranians in the same place, it's just this feeling of, I already know that all eyes are going to be on me as soon as I walk through the door, and all the comparisons. Oh, who's this person? Whose son or daughter is that? Or what is this guy doing? How much money is he making? What car does he have? All these things start coming up, and I can seriously feel it, right? And it's just toxic. It's just toxic. And again, like, where do you think that toxicity stems from? Because it has to come from somewhere, right? Like, there's toxicity in other cultures and cultural groups, but with the Iranian culture, it's almost embedded in it. It's part of who we are. It's part of our DNA.
Absolutely. So I feel like this is something that we have learned unconsciously or non-consciously for a very long time, and we don't notice it, right? Because I feel like these judgments that we may cast on other people, right, and those feelings that you felt, and Mo, it's super interesting because how you felt, it wasn't through some sort of verbal action that they tell you this, right? That actually they showed you this very explicitly. No, it's just like you felt it, sort of like it's like a non-verbal communication sort of situation that you were there and you felt it, and you decided to sort of distance yourself, right, to avoid it, right? I feel like we have this this almost like invisible glasses, right, that we're wearing, and those allow us to sort of navigate our lives, right? And if those glasses are faulty, right, in psychology they call it schemas, right? Like, if those schemas are faulty, then your thoughts and your actions also gonna be sort of faulty like that, right? So, and again, like, when I say this, I'm not here to to blame like you, I, or like any Persian person per se, right? Because I recognize that's sort of the result of like their education and their family's education, and like the educational system, and a lot of factors, right, when you think about it.
I guess, yeah. Thinking back on my own life, just I guess like growing up in a Persian household, it was very it was still really toxic in the sense that it was always, like I was saying before, even, if you heard about someone else's daughter or son doing something well, it was always, we would, justify it as, oh, well, they already have a lot of money, already خیلی پول دارن, they got lucky because of this. It was never because of hard work. We're always envious, always jealous, always looking at the next person, comparing ourselves, like you said. Where do you think the invisible glasses comes from? Because it has to develop from somewhere.
I feel like those invisible glasses, we start wearing them from a very early age, right? From when you're super young, right? We see, like, how they say kids are like sponges, right? So if they grow up in a family where there's a lot of comparison that's happening, right? And a lot of us, we have been brought up in Iran, right? So there is such a turbulent environment, to be honest, right? Like, when you compare like how people live here and how people live in Iran right now, there are all these factors, right? Like, economic situations, like social issues, right? Like, so the whole comparison aspect we talk about, right? Like, blaming aspect, right? You talked about accountability that is missing, right? Which I like 150% agree with you on that one, right? So when person is growing up in that family and seeing that, well, dad is blaming economy for our, living situation, right? And hey, that might be true, right? That might be true. I'm not saying that's not true, right? However, it shouldn't stop there, right? I feel like you should always strive for making yourself better, right? Like back when you and I first met, you were talking about like self-improvement, right? I told you, like, self-improvement for like Iranian dudes is what? Like
Non-existent.
non-existent, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, let's just meet up and go have some like juja and kebab and some chai, and then like, let's go home, right? But you and I sitting together, like having this really vulnerable moment that involves you talking about your weaknesses, you talk about your concerns, right? And not to feel bad about it, right? Like not to be shamed about it, right? Because maybe in your family you have been always taught to feel good, to always feel the best, like پسرم دخترم
Yeah.
برو انرژی باش درستو بخون برو جلو like موفق میشی فلان. But in reality, hey man, you're a human being. Sometimes you gotta feel down, right? Sometimes you're gonna feel depressed,
Yeah,
right?
dude, I'm glad you say that. Actually, with the study, you have to study. You have to make a lot of money. Look at all these people doing great. Like, look at this family. Look at their son doing all this. Now thinking back on it, man, there was a lot of moments growing up where I remember one particular moment, and this kind of encapsulates every thing wrong with the Iranian culture. I remember a family member of mine, I'm not going to say who, they literally put me in the car, drove me to East Hastings, and said to me, do you want to become like them one day? Do you want to be like that truck garbage man over there? You have to study. You have to go to college and go to university. What do you want to do? Have you figured out what you want to do? If you haven't figured it out by the age of whatever, do you want to be like one of these people, these bums that make this much money? Do you know how much money these guys make? There's people that are making this much money being a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, and you want to settle to be like this guy? It was this constant reassurance of I'm not good enough. I can't settle. I can't be patient. I can't be content with anything, because whatever I do, however much money I'm making, or whatever career I'm in, I could always be doing better. And that actually that opens my eyes to a lot of the reasons why I'm so anxious all the time and just worried about where my life is going. Like, that's a real thing, man. Like, that's like that experience I had in the moment. It didn't really affect me in the moment, because I was thinking, well, I don't know. I don't think I'm ever going to be like a truck driver or someone on the street cleaning the street or whatever. I just never thought that about myself. But it planted the seed in my head that, okay, it's always a battle of doing more.
Yeah, so man, well, I'm sorry to hear you went through that experience, man, right? And people may think, oh wow, you know what, it's not like he was in a car accident or something. But no, that dude, that is traumatizing, right? That is bad. Like, when you describe it, I remember, you remember those like Scared Straight programs on TV? Like, they take kids to like prisons and like, they just start like shouting. It's like,
do you want to be in here?
Yeah, right. You will not survive here.
I will be the one all up in your ass if you get in here.
Exactly.
Scaring the life out of them.
Yeah. So like, what your relative or your family member did was just like maybe just a weaker version of it, right? And like, I have to make something clear here. Like, we talked about comparison, we talked about accountability, right? So, man, I'm all up for accountability. It's so important, right? And actually, that's another thing that is missing in our culture, or at least in our community right now, and that is you being the man or the woman of your own word, right? And making sure that you deliver on your promises, right? So, due to the nature of what I do, I'm a mortgage broker. I learned it. I learned that, if I tell you, hey Mo, I will call you at this time on this day, I will do that, right? Because it's sort of like my reputation sort of depends on it. By the way, shameless plug. Mortgages by _Parsa by _Kiani. Follow me on Instagram. But dude, that whole comparison game, like, it's so out of place. It's so inaccurate with our lives, right? What your family member did, right? And that's what I say when I say, like, we are missing education, we are missing that sort of psychological information that everyone should have, right? You know, I went to school in Iran. I grew up in Iran. That was non-existent, right? Here, I went to high school. I went to college, went to university together, went to SFU. It wasn't there too. Definitely, it's getting better, right? But you need to understand how each person's life is so complex. Honestly, bro, it boils my blood when people say, you know, the people you see in East Hastings, they're just lazy bums. You don't know. You don't know what happened to that person. Now, imagine making comparisons. Like, oh, you see that person, you see that junkie on like the corner of, you know, this and that street. Don't be that person, right? How demeaning that is. How unhuman that is, right? And they think, oh, wow, you know what? I'm just getting this guy motivated. I'm getting this guy like on the right path, right? And it's so non-invasive and like, you know, all of that stuff. Right?
Everything about it is just so unethical, and there's just no moral standard to any of it. Like my relative telling me, don't be like this person. Well, I mean, what kind of tactic is that to help me? Is that a scare tactic? Is that, are you inducing fear into me? Is that what it is? Because that's never going to work. Right?
That's right.
If anything, now I'm at 29, I'm more anxious than ever. I'm comparing myself all the time. I'm doing good things. I'm pursuing a career. I'm striving to become more and do more, but I'm never going to feel enough because of that single comment on that single day, however many years ago.
Right.
Right. And I think a lot of Persians are just, unfortunately, we're born into that. We're born into that. Because inevitably, I think throughout life, there is going to be that feeling of comparison and that that drive to want to do better. But I think within our culture and being raised in our families is perpetuated because of this constant, everyday having a tab on you. Did you study? It's not even, you know what? It's like, I remember it was never because if I had homework or if I didn't study, it was never because you want to do well on a test. It's, you have to study to do well on the test so you don't become that guy on East Hastings.
Yes.
It was never because study, do well on the test, feel good about yourself, feel accomplished that you put in the hard work and you achieve this good grade, which would in turn eventually motivate me to do well again. It was to avoid being a certain type of person. It was to avoid a certain result of being a bum, not making enough money, etc., etc.
Dude, absolutely. Like, I feel like the educational system has failed us tremendously on that.
In the Iranian educational system?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I'm talking about like the Iranian right now. So you know, there was so much focus on tests and like, oh, make sure you excel in this test and make sure you get a high grade, right? And well, you have that exam that is coming up, and then you have the final exam that's coming up, and the comparison and like everything that like learning was missing. Learning wasn't there. Like, you know, I wasn't learning for the sake of learning, right? Which is like actually the point of learning. Like, baba, این چیزی که یاد میگیری ازش لذت ببری.
Yeah.
Right?
Enjoy the stuff you're learning, the content you're learning.
Exactly. And then use it, right? And it's being functional, right? You know? But you know, you're finding yourself, you know, especially if, you know, yourself or your family have some perfectionist or OCD tendencies, right? And again, man, you know it. Like, these tendencies are not always diagnosed, right? Like, they may have it, but for some reason they don't go to a therapist or you know, they haven't
because they also don't want to be labeled.
That's right, exactly.
Because it's the fear of this family or this Iranian community or this group finding out that that you're diagnosed with something, you're immediately, you know, judged and labeled and ostracized in the Iranian community.
That's right. And exactly, man. And that's like, that's not living, right? That's just a race. Like, you're always racing, and it's not even a marathon, right? Because marathon is like, you know, you're taking your time and then you're going, and you know, like, yeah, well, there's a finish line, but like a race is like, oh, I'm gonna just get there as fast as I can. Like, you know, I'm gonna get my bachelor's, then I'm gonna get my master's, then I'm gonna get my PhD, right? Then I'm gonna upgrade my, you know, my Toyota to a, I don't know, to a Mazda, and from Mazda I'm gonna go
Benz,
to Benz, and then Benz and Bentley, right? Like, dude, like, it doesn't stop, right? Like I'm gonna say this in Farsi, but like, Baba vel kon.
Yeah, let it go.
Are raha kon, let it go. Like, live. Like, you know that video by the Doctor Strange actor?
Yes.
It's like it's talking about like everything that you're doing. You're pondering, you're thinking, you're doubting, and it's like, do, like, Baba, do, like, just chera ma nemit. Why can't we just like, just live, right? Live, especially live in the moment, right? Like, you know, you read about mindfulness, right? Like, which is the whole point, is live in the moment, right? We're usually caught up in the past, right? Like, oh, like, you know, it was so good before, like, you know, it was so, or we worry about future, right? But we never live in the past. Sorry, we live in the present, right? So, yeah, dude, I
guess, knowing all this, knowing the community we live in, and how deep the cultural roots of the toxicity is, what's one thing that you and I could do to throw a wrench into the whole cycle, and maybe down the road in a decade, 2 decades, push the direction of the culture into a more inclusive and collaborative and supportive place? Because it's personally, for me, I just avoid it now. I avoid any Iranian, I guess, gathering, even tradition, ceremony, whatever. I just kind of avoid it because I just identify more to the Western Canadian culture now as a result of it. What would you suggest? Because it's hard, man. Because you've lived in Iran, you lived there for a while, and then moving here. What is your experience? What kind of guide do you have, or a vision that you have that could come to life at some point?
Honestly, man, remember we talked about how we always talk about, you know, we as a community are lacking in major areas compared to other communities, such as, you know, like the Chinese community, Indians, you know, Filipinos, whatever, right? And then it stops there, right? I like to push that further. I like to take it a step further and say, we becoming a better community, it starts with us becoming like more informed people, right? More knowledgeable people, right? Because you know, you asked me about where would you start. For me, is knowledge, right? Like, remember Tai Lopez, knowledge.
Yeah,
he used to say knowledge,
yeah.
right? Like,
that guy was annoying.
Yeah, I know.
Fuck that guy.
I know. But he had a point, right? Knowledge is so important, right? You know, because when you learn, right, when you better yourself, right, and when you also like challenge ideas, right, and challenge the tradition, right, and be okay to be judged, like, you know, being okay with, you know what, like, that person doesn't like me because I'm being straight up, right, because I'm saying how I'm feeling, I'm talking about how I'm feeling, right, you know how in Farsi, like, zeshte, مثلا رو در وایسی.
Bite your tongue. Don't say anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Just don't say it just because we don't want to get into any confrontation.
Exactly. Yeah. But I argue, man, like, the state we're in right now, both here and also in Iran, is because of all those tongue bitings that has happened, right? All those, I'm not gonna say it because they're gonna judge me, because I don't know, like I'm friend with their second cousin from, like, you know, like being straight up, right? And dude, I have with like being straight up and being honest, it comes with a price, right? But I'd rather be straight up and honest rather than pretend to be something else, right? Because not always, like, you know, honesty, like with people, when you're honest with them, they react, right? Because you are reminding them stuff that they sort of have sort of like hidden from themselves under layers and layers of, you know, like excuses, blaming, procrastination, you know it, right? So like taking ownership, right? Taking ownership for your improvement, like being committed to it, right? Holding others accountable. Like I told you, like accountability, bro, is so important to me, right? Being man of your words. Like if you tell me I'm gonna be here, like stuff like this, right? And dude,
that's such a Persian thing too. When you say, "Oh, let's meet at this place at a certain time," and then being late to it, it's such a Persian thing.
That's right.
It's just like, oh, come on, man, it's okay. Like,
right.
It's almost acceptable. It's like, no, man, don't be late. It's punctuality. It's respect. You don't respect me by being here on time. It's like these little rude interactions and these cultural things that we just kind of like slip under the rug as if it's nothing. Like, no, man, these aren't healthy ways to live. These aren't improving anything.
That's right, man. Like, and again, it's not just only in your personal life, right? Like for my business, like I intentionally built my business around knowledge and accountability, right? Because these are important, like not just to like other people, but like to yourself, right? Like you want to feel good, like you want to feel that you're accountable to yourself, that you can achieve your goals, right? So like I always say, when someone sort of flakes on you, they probably flakes on their own dreams too, on their own desires too, right? Because it's honestly nearly impossible that I'm not, you know, accountable to myself, but I'm accountable to other people. I've yet to find a person that, you know, fits in that category. There's a bit of, you know, like they're parallel, right? You know, it's like, you know, imagine if you are truthful with everyone else, but you lie to yourself, right? Yeah, that's possible because it's yourself, right? But usually if you're honest and straight up and like, you know, like truthful with everyone else, you also like that to yourself, right? You know? So I feel like that's an area that, and we need to start from early ages, man, from like, you know, our kids, like, you know, these are stuff that we need to teach our kid. And I think they need to be taught about this both in our own language, like in Farsi, and also in English, right? Because I noticed that about you, right? Like you could be super straight up and super like yourself in English, but maybe in Farsi you might not be like as, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not a skill thing. It's not like, oh well, my Farsi is not good. No, it's like I can actually talk about this. I know the words for it. I can be vulnerable in Farsi. Like میتونم آسیب پذیر باشم تو فارسی, right? تو صحبت کردنم, and when I talk to people, when I express myself, right? You know? Yeah. So that's the way I see it, at least.
Right. It's actually true when you say that, because dude, even when I start speaking Farsi, I can feel a different part of me coming out, a different personality, a different thinking process and attitude. Just as soon as I flip the switch on going from English to Farsi, Farsi to English, it's interesting you say that. I was never really self-aware of that.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. I noticed it recently too when I was speaking Farsi to my clients and also when I was speaking English to my clients, right? Like, dude, two totally different like systems, to be honest, right? Like the words that I use, the way I express myself, right? You know, it's a thing, right? It's very subtle, right? Like it's like, who cares? Like, you know, you're just expressing it. But no, it's actually a thing, right?
A part of I don't know, man, something that I've been thinking about, and I even growing up in high school, I remember I had more Persian friends in high school, but I always told myself, why are the majority of my friends Persian? there's so many other cultures. So when I see a lot of Persian people right now just having this little group of people in their lives that are only Persian, it kind of it makes me skeptical about that person. It kind of makes it seem that they're closed-minded and they're not willing to invite other cultures and other attitudes and other personalities into their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually, this is a funny story.
Mm-hmm.
So I was talking to this girl a few weeks ago, about a month ago, and she's from the Middle East.
But she's not Persian.
She's not Persian.
Right.
And we were talking about just, being Persian, growing up in Vancouver, and I've never been back to Iran since I moved here when I was a year old, so I essentially was born and raised here. And she was saying, oh, and I told her, and I said, listen, like I identify more with the white Canadian Western culture because, for one, I grew up here. This is my environment. I was surrounded by a majority of white, Asian, Indian people around me. There was obviously Iranians, but it was very multicultural and diverse in that sense. And I told her that, I'm more of a whitewashed guy that happens to be Iranian. And she said to me, I don't know, that's kind of a red flag because people that, are from the Middle East, particularly from the Middle East, and when they say they're whitewashed, to her, it sounded like a bit of a identity crisis. And I said, no, it's not an identity crisis. I'm not disregarding the fact that I'm Iranian. I am Iranian. I was born in Iran. Both my parents are fully Iranian.
Mm-hmm.
But all I'm saying is my values match much more to the Canadian and white culture. What is the issue with that? What is wrong with that? Right? And I guess what my point with that is, and you told me, I remember we had this talk last week when you said you came to Canada and you wanted to go into real estate, and your mom was like, well, you moved to Canada to become a realtor?
Yeah. Quite dalal بشی.
Yeah.
Literally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So it's just this bit of and I'm very thankful that my mom in particular was very open to me, venturing out into different cultures and inviting different types of people into the household and just throwing myself into the Canadian culture because I guess I don't know what my point is, but it's just a lot of, I think, Iranians when they're stuck with this just group of Iranian people that they're with all the time, living in Canada, living in Vancouver, it kind of just makes me think, well, what's going on?
Yeah, right. So I feel like, venturing out of that group of friends, like the same group of friends that you sort of grew up with, it's a process of change, right? And change is uncomfortable, man, right? Like, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you about this. Like, change is uncomfortable, right? Like, everyone knows about this, right? But it's the courage to actually explore the unknown, right? Explore something that you haven't explored yet, right? So also that's another thing, right? So when I talk about what are those characteristics or those, things that we can work on, is one of them is becoming a risk taker, right? With myself, working as a mortgage broker, it was a risk, right? Because for the first time in my life, I was going to start a commission-based job, right? So you don't know where your next paycheck is going to come from. You got to go actually look for business, or more realistically, hunt for business, right? The way I see it, right? So, when you mentioned that is something off, you feel when you see people that just, you know, hang out with just the same group of people. I feel it, and I understand it, right? And I feel like it's just that change that, you know, you venturing out, like myself, right? Like, you know, I used to be a very shy person, Mo, like very shy back in Iran, back when I was a teenager. I was shy, you know, like I don't have any girlfriend, right? Like, you know, I only hanged out with like the in Farsi bache musbat, bache pastoris in Iran, like all the good guys,
the
like,
good
you know,
kids,
the good kids, like you really like, you know, like
very proper.
Oh yeah,
never broke the rules.
That's right. Yeah, like only drink their water when it's like boiled at like a 40 degree or so, you know, like very like you know what I mean, right? Like, and then I moved here, and then because my parents don't live here, I find myself to be like just this is it, Parsa. Like, you gotta go make something. You gotta make it happen, right? You know, so like. And that was the change for me, and that was hard, man, because I'm an only child like yourself, right? I don't have any brothers or sister, right? So that was difficult for me, but it's good, it's needed. That experience led me start working in a bank, right? And before that I was working at Best Buy, right? So I had to talk to people, right? I had to engage people, even if I liked it or not. Like, it didn't matter. I had to
From
do
all
it.
sorts of cultures,
That's
all
right.
sorts of backgrounds.
That's right. And they taught me about like sales techniques, like how to talk to, you know, these people, how to talk to this group of people, right? Like, they taught me, right? And dude, that's probably the biggest change that I experienced in my life, right? So that gave me the courage to actually come and talk to you and say, oh, hey, are you the podcast guy? Right? Or other things, right? You know, to just like sort of ask for what you want, right? Cause like, I don't know what it is, man, but like with our culture, we're like, so do this, then like almost like a line, like a linear progression sort of situation. So you do A, then you do B, then C, D. But then like life is not like that. Life is like this. Like, it's just, you know, it's just like, you know,
we kind of see it as like a simple equation to what it means to be successful. Engineer, lawyer, doctor. If you're not one of these three, it's kind of like, well, what went wrong in the path?
Yeah.
What went wrong? If you become a therapist, if you become, I don't know, a personal trainer or an artist, someone that makes music. Pul tush nist. There's no money in that.
معطلی.
Yeah. بیکاری چقدر بیکاری الان. You're not doing much. I mean, I don't see you getting into real estate and selling a bunch of properties. It's just so fixed, man. It's so rigid. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
That's right, man. That's exactly, like, you know, we gotta teach ourselves to be more open-minded, right? And, you know, less judgmental, and just like, you know, like there are a million ways to live your life, right?
Yeah.
And this whole like, oh, lawyer, engineer, doctor, that's just one way of it, right? And just, do you recognize how short life is? Right? Like how, and also not only it's short, it's freaking unpredictable, dude. Like, you don't know what's gonna happen. Like, you know, I mean, God forbidden, right? But like, imagine if you and I were going outside right now, and there's a drunk driver that's gonna hit us, and we're gonna die. Like, just like that, right? And that's, bro, that's life. That's the reality of this thing we call life, right? So if you're so worried every time, you're so worried, like, oh, well, if you at the personal level, like, what's gonna happen tomorrow? What's gonna happen a year from now? Am I gonna get married? Okay, my kids are gonna be fine, right? Yeah. What if I don't get that job at the parents' level? What my kids gonna do? Is he or she gonna find a good partner? If they're gonna earn good money, like, it's
so personally for you,
yeah.
With all those things, where do you think that all stems from?
Which one, like in terms of
just, oh, how is the marriage gonna go? How much money am I gonna make? Am I gonna get a sale? How's my career gonna look in a few years? Are my kids gonna be okay when I do have kids? And these are all human nature things to be having on your mind and being mindful of. But for you, where do you think it really kind of just like gains its power from?
I think, to be honest, Mo, the majority of it comes from me being a very competitive person. Like, as a person, I'm very competitive, right? And like, and also I set very ambitious goals for myself, right? And that's a curse and a blessing. Let me tell you that.
Right.
Right.
Are the ambitious goals because of the culture you were raised in, where you were constantly trying to do better than the next person and really prove yourself? Or is it like, you know what I'm saying, dude?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, for me personally, like I would say, is trying to one up the other person or not become a failure. It's not really even like to outclass someone or make more money than someone else. It's to not be that guy on East Hastings, to avoid that result.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because right now you're really actually super nicely bringing the unconscious to conscious, right? So yes, I gotta say to an extent, yes, you know, and I know because of, you know, the culture that I grew up with, right, and, you know, sort of those factors that surrounded me and like the situation, right? Yes, you know, I am myself. Like I said, I'm still competitive. Like I've been competitive since I can remember, right? But that my experience in Iran, absolutely, right? Maybe if I grew up here in Canada, you were sitting across a totally different person, man, right? And again, I'm not saying like there's no value judgment here, not for the good or bad, but I'm just, you know, describing the situation and like how it would have turned out for me.
What are some of the things that happened in Iran that shaped you?
I feel like just man, like I always say, like the educational system, right? Now that I look back, I realized how worried and how stressed I was about a whole lot of stuff that really didn't matter. Now that I think about it, you know, like how we have in Iran, we have concours, we have this big exam.
I heard about it.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, after you finish high school, you have to do it. Then, depending on your performance on that, like it's like a GED for US, right?
SAT,
that's right.
ACT.
ACT, yeah, like that. And like, depending on your performance on that exam, then they will sign you to like, you know, good universities or bad, you know, like, and like that stress itself was so much, and I was so worried, like, you know, what if I, you know, do badly, right? What if I just bomb that exam, right? And then you have the comparison, like, you know, like, you know, oh, you know, our family, we had other friends too, like, you know, and those parents, they have other kids, right? And like, we were used to hang out. It was like, oh, well, I got this number, like I got this grade, right? And I go to this school, right? Like, it's like, at that age, like, I feel like that shouldn't have been my concern. I should have like lived my life, right? Like I should have just like be free, right?
Been
like
a kid.
Yeah,
do different things, have fun.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
And I think a part of it too is the reason why you were so worried and anxious about this exam is because you also knew that if you didn't do as well as you thought and you didn't get into the university you wanted, there's no support and there's no awareness on mental health in the Iranian culture. Like, it's out of the realm of discussion to be mentally ill, to have depression, anxiety. It's just we just chalk it up to, oh, you're bored, you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
You're just tired, go take a nap.
Absolutely.
I remember that. Luckily for me, my mom never weaponized it against me. She always was very open to it and allowed me to speak my part and gave me that space to really talk about my feelings. But I feel like in the Iranian culture, I mean, a lot of kids are hesitant because then they would be labeled as divunas, like this person's crazy. Like if you know what I'm saying? Like, if
or
you,
it's reckless. Like,
yeah, or it's reckless, or the family's in chaos,
Mm.
right? It's saying you're depressed or anxious, you're immediately judged, and you're put it into this category of, this person's nuts. They've lost it.
Yeah.
Which is so sad. It's so demoralizing being an Iranian, especially man in the Iranian community. Dude, it's not even.
I mean,
Forget about it.
bro. We only got us. I'm telling you, like we have to support each other, right? Like, and you're right. Like, right now, thankfully, there are initiatives and there are activities. Like, there's stuff happening for like Iranian men, or like just men in general, right? But what I'm really passionate about is what we can do for Iranian men, like including you and I, right? Because, dude, there are men in their 50s that like they're battling demons, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
like emotional demons, psychological demons, right? But because they have kids to feed, they have families, right? They're just like, just push it away. Like, they're like, it's like, no, I'm good. But they're not good, right? And then it's interesting because, you know how if you keep telling yourself you're okay, you actually start feeling okay. But in reality, you're not okay, right? It's just, bro, it's just a deadly loop. It's a evil loop. I usually don't use the word evil, but it's honestly,
It's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, right? That's why, like, we should become very vulnerable and be okay with it, right? And like, حرف بزنیم با هم صحبت بکنیم, let's talk, right? No judgments, let's go, let's talk, like, just like, this is needed, right? Like it's like ما اینو میخوایم, right? It's no longer like it's good to have it. No, it's needed. It's ضروریه. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like, so
stop lying to yourself. Like, you do need it.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to need it. It's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I definitely think in the Persian culture, it's one of the worst in terms of we're one of the best cultures in suppressing our emotions because of what we've been taught and what we've been told on mental health. It's just you being bored. Oh, it's just you not being busy enough, or you should be on the corner right now making money somehow, some way. It's crazy to me, man. It's crazy to me, and that's what kind of drew me away from the Iranian culture. I don't want to be part of that. Why would I want to be a part of that? Even now, man, I have this, I don't have this, I wouldn't say it's a resentment, but I have this resistance towards anything Iranian. I mean, just even in terms of like Nowruz or Yalla. I know these things are coming. I take note of it.
Yeah.
But I sleep through it.
Right. And that's, Mo, that's actually, I'm really sad to hear that because, like, it's true, in this podcast, we're really like, we're going harsh and we're going hard on like, like the aspects of culture we don't like. But there's so many beautiful things about our culture too, right? Like there's
Absolutely.
stuff, and it's sad for me to hear that that's how you feel because you sort of automatically gonna miss on those other stuff, right? Because you're not feeling that sort of connection. You don't feel like yourself, right? So just to expand your feeling into something that is bigger, and I promise you're not the only one that's feeling like this.
Yeah.
Right? Just to expand that is like, going back to what I mentioned during the beginning of the podcast was that we need to become better people, right? For us, right? For each other, right?
Yeah.
So you're feeling welcomed, right? To just participate in like whatever events or just be comfortable dealing with another Iranian, right? And yes, I understand it's not going to be perfect, right? Because life is not perfect, right? It's not like, we're going to become perfect. We're going to become like 10 out of 10. Like, no, that's not
Everyone
possible.
loves each other and everyone has no envy or jealousy. No, it's never going to be like that.
That's right. There's no paradise on earth, right? So that's the way I see it, right? But at least we can get better. But dude, like,
it just breaks my heart that, like, I'm not gonna mention names, but how many Iranian businesses turn out to be like fraudulent businesses running scams, right? And then they're like, who they're scamming? They're scamming their fellow Iranians, right? Like, I'm really resisting the urge to drop names right now, and I wouldn't because I don't want to, but there's so many of them, right? And that's bad. That's bad on every level, because they're making each person, each Iranian, to become sort of distrustful of another Persian or me. You know, I'm a business owner, right? Like, it makes people to just like second guess everything. So do I want to work with Parsa?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that brings up a great point, because growing up, again, that same family member that took me on that drive and told me all those things, به همه میگفت این کلا برداره. This guy's a scam. This guy's a scam. This guy, you can't trust this guy. Oh, they're just doing it out of their own benefit. They don't really want to help anyone. So
Yeah.
I just continuously heard that, and I learned that every Iranian's out for themselves. That's what I learned. And, you know, just any action that kind of fit that description, I would automatically, it would support the theory of every Iranian is slimy and wants to scam you.
Yeah.
So it supported and perpetuated what that family member used to always tell me. So it's an ongoing cycle of, you know, and it's just...
Yeah, dude, like, it's crazy.
And to be honest, man, the Iranian culture, what has it done for me? Like, I mean, seriously, what is it really done for me? I grew up in Canada. Like, what have I really gone for me? Yeah, I've learned Farsi. Yeah, I have those two sides of me where I can start speaking Farsi and really seeing that identity, that personality come out of me, which is great. I'm very grateful that I have that. I'm really grateful that I did experience a lot of the cultural practices that we do. But other than that, what is it? Like, other than us talking shit about each other, even the friends I had in high school that were Persian, dude, every time I hung out with them, it was always like a roast fest. We always roasted each other.
Yeah,
it was always like foish like we're trying to like mess with each other.
Right.
It's like, it's cool to a certain extent. It's cool to a certain age, but at some
It
point,
gets so boring.
It's like, bro, fuck off. Get the fuck out of my...
Yeah.
Even like a few weeks ago, I had a few Iranian people that my buddy brought over. They were like messing with me over something. داشتن مسخره‌ام می‌کردن. And I was like, ha, yeah. But it just reminded me, it brought back all the emotions and experience that I had before of, okay, this is why I don't associate with the Iranian community anymore. Because it's just ongoing shit talking. I don't know.
That's right.
Fuck off. I don't need that in my life.
Yeah. I know. And that's the thing. Like, because, like I told you, like, the default approach right now is that, right? Is that, like all that shit talking you mentioned, or what your relative said, like, oh, this guy is a scam, this guy is a fraud, don't work with this guy. Like, that's the default right now. And I personally feel responsible to change that, right? And I know I can't do it on my own, right? And that's why sort of like I'm here and telling you about this, so like, you know, your listeners also can hear about this and make them think, right? Because definitely the default approach is not working, you know, based on your experience, based on how I felt, based on most Persians feel, right? You know, and I feel like, you know, you actually brought a very good point. You asked, what has Persian culture done for me, right? That's a very good question. The way I sort of rephrase that is that how can we become closer because of Persian culture, right? How can we become closer together because of that culture, right? You know, and honestly, dude, I think there's an opportunity that lies there, right? There's a hidden opportunity, right? Like, yes, people have responsibilities. People are worried about everything. Like, people are busy. Like, let's say, like, people in Vancouver are busy, right? So I'm like, this is not something like, you know, everyone needs to do. But like, we need to think about this. I mean, we need to become better, and it starts with us, right? Doesn't start with the everyone else, right? Because we always say like, you know, it needs to change, right? But usually the finger of blame is on everyone else, right? You know. But the way I see it is that when we realize how small our community is, because it is, man. Like, won't you agree? Like how small,
Everyone knows everyone.
everyone knows everyone, right? Like I was at a party last night and I started talking to this guy, and then we started like, you know, exchanging Instagrams, right? And like we already had like 6 common friends, like followers, right? It was like, oh, how do you know this person? Oh, I know it from here, blah blah blah, right? Like, and there's an opportunity there, like, you know, but what we are doing right now is the exact opposite. Like we're lying, we're scamming, right? We are like shit talking, right? Like it. How many times you heard like when like you know, imagine you have a newcomer to Canada from Iran. One of the most common things that people who live here for longer tell them is that با ایرانیا کار نکنی ها.
Yeah, don't work with the Iranians.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, you know, سرت کلاه میذارن ها, right? And that's sad because it's true. Like it has happened, right? And it is still happening, right? But it's on us to speak up and to change it and actually be a element of change ourselves, right? Like one of the reasons that I feel like we as people, like I'm talking about the situation in Iran also here, we are not really making progress is that we're always in the blame mode. We're always in the blame mode. Like we're always like, it's like, where's the accountability? Like, where is you sort of, you know, taking ownership? Like, you know, like Jocko Willink has this whole thing, like, you know, ownership is like discipline, ownership, like discipline is freedom. It is freedom, right? Like, you got to take ownership. It's uncomfortable, yes.
What are some of the things that we need to be more accountable of? You would say.
Me? Well, I would say we have to, I think it's going to start from us being accountable for our mental health, right? Like, I feel like it really starts there, right? And mental health is because it's your thoughts and feelings, right? And all the schemas that I mentioned in the earlier, right? And then when you take accountability, you sort of, you commit to making it better every day. You stay away from toxicity. Like you mentioned toxicity, right? Like, bro, من اخبار نگاه نمیکنم.
Yeah.
Bro, like news is like no, like it's like I don't watch news, right? Because it's bad. Because it's always like some sad thing that's happening or something that I can't control, right? But what does a typical Persian household look like? Always news on, like
dude.
BBC Farsi, like freaking VOA, or like, you know, Iran International. I don't know if you noticed that.
Absolutely, I know.
I don't watch news, like, bro, like.
It's interesting you say that, man. It's like what's the expression? Like it's, or a word. It's the we enjoy the self-loathing.
Right.
It's as if we thrive in a place of sadness. As think about it, even when a family member dies, Yani, dude, it's of course sad. You should be crying, you should be really upset. It's a really dark and sad time in that family's life. But it's like you have to, Yani, break yourself down to the very bone, to your very last piece of like existence to feel the pain. Yani, if you don't cry, if you don't mourn, if you don't cry, if you're not upset, zeshte. It's like you're not really letting yourself, like we like setting ourselves into this dark realm of just cynicism, and we feel like as a community, as a culture, we thrive in that. We don't.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's right, yeah.
It's as if, like, you're right, like the news, like it's always on when I go home. It's always on. Yeah. Talking about the things that are going on in Iran, in the States, Trump becoming president, how this is going to affect Iran.
Yeah.
It's as if and we want something to make us feel something, and it always defaults to something toxic.
That's right. So that's the thing. Like, you know, you mentioned the steps, right? Like, if you honor and if you actually care about your mental health, right? That is something that's going to say, like, that's going to go into the, like, the toxicity and like the no sort of like column, right? You know, and you mentioned that. I feel like due to the history of events that it's been happening in Iran, right? That has been more prevalent. That has become more prevalent, right? And it's interesting because in psychology, what you mentioned, it's exactly the polar opposite of a narcissistic person. A narcissistic person wants attention and wants warmth and like kindness through like, oh, I'm better. Like, I'm the opposite is that like it, and actually there's a schema for it, right? Like in Farsi they call it like tahware raha shudagi. You kind of feel like you're kind of like raha shudi, like you kind of like you're left alone, right? And because of that, you deserve compassion and love and kindness, right?
Oh,
so
based on the things that are happening in Iran in current events,
yes,
as Iranians here,
yes,
we feel like we're entitled to that feeling of compassion and kindness.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like, it's just in general because of all the like, or just immigration, man. Like, some people, hey, immigration is not easy. I've been through it, right?
Yeah.
It's not easy, right? But then that should not become your whole identity. Like,
I see.
Like the whole pains of immigration, right? Like people make that as an excuse for not making progress.
Got it.
Right? Or
that's
like,
a good point.
مثلا زبانم خوب نیست, right? Oh, like,
they're not going to give me opportunities
Yeah.
because my English isn't good enough.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
I'm Iranian. They don't like Iranians here. They're racist here.
That's right, bro. That's right. Like,
So we're always bitter. We're
Yes.
always in a place of trying to fight up.
that's right.
We're never thinking, well, just improve and get yourself up. It's always, well, we're getting pushed down from the system.
Bro, like you'll be amazed, like number of people that are in that like blame mode that I mentioned, right? It's never them. It's always someone else, right? It's always their family, their mom, their dad, their friend, life in Canada, قیمت دلار, this, that. But at some point, that shit needs to stop, right? And then accountability needs to enter the room, right? Like I tell you, like bro, like self accountability is like, it's so important, right? And it's missing, and it needs to be there, right? And from there, then I talk about like taking care of your mental health, right? Like slowly but surely, if you keep up the habits and you have the discipline to like always better yourself, like bro, like read books. Like people don't read books these days.
Yeah.
It's bad, bro.
Yeah.
Like, and also like like podcasts are great. Like listen to podcasts, right? Like get better. Like you just like this constant improvement.
Become more aware.
Right.
Become more aware. Even if you don't agree with any of the things that are said on the podcast or the book you're reading,
Yeah.
at least you're aware that these sort of concepts and these theories are real.
That's
that may open up a door for you at some point. Or you might be in a situation where you remember what you read before, and this kind of relates to this circumstance you're in.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, dude, I wanted to talk about, I don't know if you've noticed it, but I've noticed it throughout all my life.
Mm-hmm.
In the Iranian culture, we have this, I don't know where it comes from, but we have this feel where we are the inferior race to the white race. Any white person is on a pedestal and they're the dominant group and we're the non-dominant group. Dude, I remember, and I want to tell you this story. I remember going to a New Year's party for a few years ago, and it was all Iranian. One of my best friends, he's white. We brought him to the event. As soon as we walked in, all eyes turned to us like, whoa, who's this white guy? Who's this token white guy that just came out of nowhere? It became to a point, you know how Iranians, like if we just walked in, all the Iranians there would look at us and be like, oh, Infolaniye, it's the son of this person. Oh, he's doing this, he's going to school for that, he's playing basketball.
Yeah.
But as soon as I walked in with a white guy, everyone, I guarantee you, in that whole event left that place. Oh, which one was Mo? Oh, Mo was the guy with the white guy. It's never, it trumped everything else. Where it was, oh, Mo is the son of so-and-so. Mo is going to school for this. He's working here. It immediately, in an instant, became, oh, Mo, the guy that came with the white guy.
That's right.
I don't know. I don't understand. Even with the relationships. Oh, did you hear so and so? Their boyfriend or girlfriend? Kanadaye, Sefide.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Boy, they're dating a white person. Oh shoot, good for them.
That's right.
It's weird, man. I don't know. Understand where this feeling comes from.
That's right. That's right. No, that's you're right. I've noticed that myself, right? Like especially especially for Persian dudes, right?
Yeah.
Like scoring a white girl becomes like a trophy, right?
It's 100%, dude. It's weird.
Right.
Like it's always been this thing, even in high school.
That's right.
Oh, dude, who are you talking to? Melissa, white girl? Yeah, man, good job.
Right.
Oh, I'm talking to Jennifer, white girl? No, Asian. Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, right.
I don't understand where this thought process and this putting on a pedestal came from. I mean, is it just through propaganda in Iran where they glorify white people as being like the beacon of excellence? Is that where it comes from? I don't understand. Do you have thoughts on that?
Dude, like it's interesting because I have friends that are like in a very similar situation as yours, right? Like, they moved here when they was like 6 or 7 or like 10 or like, 2 or 3, like very, very young, right?
Yeah.
And like there's this sort of like extreme attraction that we talked about towards Caucasian girls, right? And like, what follows is like shit talking about Persian girls, right? So it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned that because I've seen it. Like I have seen it firsthand. I've heard it firsthand, right? I thought about this, like, and I sort of like analyzed this in my mind, like, why this is happening, right? I feel like a lot of time, like kids of the families, they want to create this identity, right? That is really different from their parents' identity, right? Or whatever they were doing in Iran, right? Like, because maybe in Iran they were single or they were like dating this Persian girl, but then they came here, like they want to fully assimilate into the like the Canadian culture, right? Like I did that too, but like me was with hockey, right? Like, dude, Persian guy learning ice skating at 17.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? And I sucked at it. Like, like no lie. I wasn't good at it, right? But like that became my sort of
your key to
that's right, my key,
to assimilate and just throw yourself into the
that's
culture.
right. Yeah. So when I went to a bar or something, or when I got on SkyTrain, I had topics to talk about, right? I can talk about Canucks and I can talk about like the playoffs and like, as opposed to like just me just being there and I was like,
oh, I'm Iranian.
Yeah.
I came from Iran.
That's
and
right.
This is what we do there, and I have nothing to relate with you. Yes, dude, that makes sense.
Right. So I feel like a part of it comes from there, right? But the issue is that feeling of inferiority that could lead you to start ignoring or not seeing your feelings and your wants and needs, right? So you're befriending a white girl or a Caucasian girl just for the sake of doing it, right? But it's not good for you, right? You're in an abusive relationship, right? She's a gold digger, right? Like, for example, right? Like,
A lot of times too, it's like, oh man, I don't know if I mean, the white girl. I mean, the white man. This is bad, but like the white girl isn't that attractive objectively, but because she's still white, it raises her attraction.
That's right.
Compared to a Persian girl that's very attractive. Vali, there's not that extra, that extra fire, that extra push for me to pursue a Persian girl than it is a white girl. It's like accomplishment if you get a white girl.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because I think it's maybe a bit of racial, I guess a bit of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Because growing up in a white community, I'm aware of it. I'm aware that I'm Iranian and there's a lot of white people around me. So I guess, yeah, a part of just becoming more identified with the white culture, for you, it was playing hockey and learning to skate.
Yeah.
For a lot of Persians, it's getting a white girl.
That's right. That's right. And also another thing is, man, like we can't ignore confidence and feeling good about, like, you know, self-esteem and feeling good about yourself, right? You know, so you know how you mentioned it becomes an accomplishment, right? So finding that person and dating that person becomes this sort of confidence boost for you. It's like, oh wow, you know what? I haven't been here even a year or 2 years, or I've been here for a long time, and look at me, like I'm dating a khariji, right? A khariji girl, right? Like a white girl, right? You know, so and then, like, you know, that ultimately, man, it's not beneficial, right? Because your source of confidence is external, right? Is dependent on someone else. So if that person breaks up with you, oh man, you're gonna have a bad time. You're gonna be like, you know,
and the self-criticism is gonna be like, oh, because I was Persian.
That's right.
You know, I'm not white enough. I'm not.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. Or like, yeah, like self-criticism, like just feeling bad, right? Because you put so much, like, so like you rely on that person, like, for so much confidence and so much good feelings, that when the source is like gone, or when, you know, when she's not there, then there's nothing. Then you can't define your self-confidence. You don't know where it's from, right? And you can't get more. But then if you're happy with yourself, if you're happy with who you are, right, then that's a different story, right? But you're right. Like the whole inferiority, like becoming an accomplishment and a trophy, rather than two people that are, you know, compatible together, you know, and they want to date, like.
And I feel weird talking about this because I don't want to objectify white women at all. That's not what we're doing, but it is a real thing in the Iranian culture. It's
absolutely.
Guys around me, oh my God, it's like, white girl, yeah, dude, you got a white girl? You know, he dated a white girl, you know, dating you know, he got married to a white girl. It's just like this extra layer of, whoa.
That's right. That's
you know?
right, yeah.
It's an extra layer of another thing to be envious about, or another thing to be jealous about.
Exactly.
From someone else in the
That's
Iranian.
right. That's right. And see, that's the thing, man. Like you mentioned that, and that, again, that becomes another race, right? Like it becomes another whole, like, comparison game that you find yourself playing, right? While you have no business playing that game, and you have no reason to be playing that game. But because you're letting other people to define your happiness parameters, that's what happens, right? Like, you know, that's why, like, you knowing yourself, like we talk about self-awareness, right? I think I should say, probably before everything, self-awareness is the key, right? That you know yourself, right? And you're keep knowing you're doing everything to know yourself better, right? Because, like, you know, like Mark Manson in the book, what's that, the Art of Giving a Fuck? What was that? Have you heard that book?
Yeah.
Like, have you heard about the book?
I think so, yeah.
The Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Art of Not Giving
a Fuck.
The orange book with
the orange book,
cover.
exactly,
Yes.
yeah. It's like, talks about like the personality onion, right? Why onion? Because there's layers, right? And imagine that you have like hundreds and thousands of layers, right? But then when you start peeling, then you start, like, you know, getting yourself better. Dude, people don't know that freaking onion exists, right? Like, this is what we're dealing with right now, right? So I feel like that's also another reason that, you know, you're finding yourselves in that
like,
situation.
why am I so attracted to white girls?
Yeah.
Even though this particular white girl might cheat on me and is just with me for money.
Yeah.
But just because she's a white girl, I'm satisfied because I know I'm making other Iranians jealous, and I'm having this feel of superiority over my peers and my own people in my own community.
That's right.
It's almost not even for myself anymore. It's just to prove to others.
That's right.
That I'm good enough, or I'm white enough, or I'm
dude. Like, you know,
It's
that
just it's so fucking, like, even talking about it, man. It's just, it's never ending. It seems it's just this vicious circle that it's a dog chasing its tail.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yes. It is. It literally is a dog chasing its tail because you know, when you go deep and when you're like exploring, right? Like when you're exploring yourself more, you ask question. It's uncomfortable, dude. Like when you ask a lot of whys about, you know, like the way you do stuff, your decisions, it's uncomfortable, right? Like I always say, like, you know, if you're buying a nice car, if you're buying a Maserati just to impress others, dude, you, to each their own, but you know, it's not the way to live life, right? Like I personally, I want to make sure if I buy a car, first and foremost, I enjoy that car, right? And I don't give a damn about what you think about it, like, you know, or what, like, Amme June and Khale June and Baba think about it, like, you know, it's like, no, right? Or to brag to you, it's like, hey Mo, dadash, man Bentley دارم. What do you have? To Benz داری, مثلا, right? You know what I mean? Like all
Yeah.
this comparison thingy, right?
Yeah.
Then it's, the car's not for your enjoyment. It's like a trophy object that you're gonna show off to everyone. It's like a little, it's like a big diamond, right? That you're like just trying to make everyone blind.
And the sad thing is, most Persians don't know about the fact that that car, once you buy it, sure, it might make you feel good in the moment, but it's not sustainable.
Exactly.
The next thing you have to buy, the next thing you have to impress, the next person. And some Persians don't even know that, like the surface level of it's not going to fulfill you in the long run.
That's right, bro. That's right. That's, you know, have you heard about the hedonic treadmill?
Yes.
So that is
Explain it. Yeah.
exactly, that's just what you said, right? There is always something higher, right? There's no end to it. You can't fin. It's a treadmill. Right? You're not going anywhere. You're just going and going and going, right? You know, and it's unfortunate because right now, man, like Instagram, TikTok, like these tools have make it also very hard for us right now because, you know, you compare yourself at such a large scale right now. You know, you see, and then you see others' happiness and you think that happiness is going to make you happy, right? It may, you know, of course, you know, but like by no means I'm saying like money is bad. No, money's good. You need money. Like, you need lots of it, right? Like, just to be clear on that one, right? But then that comparison, it leads to this sort of like self-loathing and self-hate, right? And it stops you there, right? Like that's why, like, also I'm not on Instagram as much, right? Except for like my business and stuff. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not going on Explore looking at people taking their pictures in like Greece or like, I don't know, people going to like Ibiza having the best time of their lives on this like $1 billion yacht, right? Because that's, you know, like
I mean, what does that do for you, really? Like,
Right.
It's out of your control. I mean, it doesn't really, it doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form. It cannot affect you, and
no.
I mean, it's really, it's a self-discipline to just be able to understand that you're on your own path, and that's all that really you can control. I mean,
That's right.
whether you do end up getting onto a $1 billion yacht or not, I mean, it's in your control, and I mean, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. Like, it's just, again, it comes back to, I guess, just how we were raised and the things we were told.
Yeah.
The things that matter. Right?
Absolutely.
What mattered to me, apparently, was not to become a failure. It wasn't to improve myself and be ambitious and to constantly evolve. It was avoid at all costs being a loser.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Because there's a difference.
Yeah, yeah. It's, man, it's like, you know, like you play basketball, right? There's a difference between play to win and playing not to lose.
Yeah.
Right? You know, one, you're gonna be on the offensive
sort of action, right? One, you're doing defense, right? You're just doubling down on defense, right? You know, when you are afraid to lose, you're on defense, dude. You're not being risk taker. You're not being ambitious, right? You're just doing damage control at that point, right?
Yeah.
But then, you know, imagine, you know, like when you're on offense, right? When you're running, like let's say you're running the triangle, right? Like you're just on action. You're just going. You're moving, right? And that makes you feel better, right? Because you're making progress. You're like, I feel like our community needs that push, right? And that push needs to come from us. It's not going to come from external, right? You know, there's no savior here. Right?
And we need each other to do better. We need each other.
Exactly. We need each other. We need ourselves. Exactly.
Yeah,
like
because a lot of Persians, I feel like, think they can do it on their own and that everyone's out to get them, which is somewhat true at times, but not everyone.
That's right. Yeah, and or some people think that change is not possible. ولش کن بابا.
Yeah.
نمیشه. چیکار می‌خوای? What are you gonna do, right? Like all of that, dude. Like we don't have a room for pessimism here, also, right? We don't have a room for negative thinking, right? Because like you mentioned, that doesn't make a change. That doesn't make a difference, at least, right? So that's the way I see it.
No, that makes sense, dude. I hope we can make a difference. I definitely, you know, that's one of my goals. That's one of my goals in the career I'm going into, is to make some sort of difference in the little small world that I have, the little impact that I might have. Because it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of burden.
That's right.
You know?
I honestly, man, just to like to wrap up what I've been preaching in the podcast, is that first of all, I think it starts with us, you know, not with anyone outside, right? The change starts with us, and we need to each of us need to get better. And two is that we have to start living, you know. Remember that if you have watched Guardians of Galaxy, there's that scene that this bartender's talking to Chris Pratt, right? And it's like, it's talking to him, and then there's this sentence that tells him, like, live a little, right? Like, we got to start doing that, like, just free of judgments, free of, like, people's plans, free of other people's standards, right? Just live your life, right? Try to enjoy the present moment. Try to like enjoy the time you have, the precious time that you have, right? We talked about how unpredictable life is, right? You know? So probably that's my biggest takeaway, right? And I think if we can do that, and also the first point that I mentioned, right? I think we as a community, we will make improvements, and we will strive towards a better tomorrow. Not just for us, because, you know, we have this generation that is also, you know, being raised right now in this community, right? Yeah. We owe it to them. I really feel we owe it to them, right? And we really need to be feeling responsible for it.
Yeah. I hear you, man. I hear you. I'm good with that, honestly. That's a good way to end it, I think.
Yeah.
It's a positive note.
Exactly, man.
I think with time we'll move towards the right direction. I hope so.
Yeah, man. I'm like super optimistic.
Yeah.
Right?
Because I do feel a part of me is missing in a way, because I can't deny the fact that I am Iranian, and that it is a part of me, that is my DNA. And for me to have put it into the back of my mind, and to have put it in the back burner for so long, it's an injustice to where I'm at and the beautiful things, like you said, that the Iranian culture does have. It's so enriched. We have one of the longest and oldest and richest cultures ever. For me to not claim that, you know, it's a shame. It's a shame, and we just got to keep doing better, like you said, dude.
Absolutely, man.
be open-minded.
Absolutely.
Cool, man. I appreciate you, dude. If you
same
want
here.
to give your Instagram again.
Oh yeah, of course. So it's mortgages by _Parsa, PARSA _KIANI.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for follow.
Yeah. Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
Okay. Joy24. Like, subscribe, comment, whatever you need to do. Do your thing. Peace.